Hey guys, welcome back to the OPD podcast with Austin and Joe, and we do have a special guest on this week. This is going to be a pretty unique episode. Don't think we've done anything quite like this. We have on Ashley Bowman today. Ashley owns and operates a company that specializes in essentially macro-friendly foods, snacks, baked goods, things like that. So she's going to talk to us about how we can make these items, how we can basically make these items not taste terrible, make them edible, how to cook them, recipe alternatives for ingredients and things like that. But before we get into that, Ashley, would you tell everyone a little bit about yourself in terms of maybe how you ended up doing what you're doing? Also give us some of your competitive background and things as well.
Yeah. Okay, so what Austin is talking about, the business Austin is talking about, is Skinny Sweets. I owned and operated it for about 2.5 years. We actually closed at the end of 2020. However, basically what we were doing was macro-friendly baked goods, how to make them a little bit better for you, just because through my own journey, I was really overweight, and what led me down the rabbit hole with health and fitness and into competing and then into coaching and then into creating this business was that I'm a foodie and I really love to eat good, tasty, food, but it was really hard to make that kind of fit in a lifestyle with bodybuilding and being really healthy and maintain the physique that I wanted. So that is how we ended up with a business to create like that. So now I'm just basically creating recipes and different things and content for my clients and to help with coaching and then hopefully, spread that out.
Perfect. Yeah. So I follow some of the stuff. I will say that it's right now, I don't use as much of it as I would when I'm actually eating less calories, just because appetite is just so low. But all those things I'd actually used a lot of during prep. You'd sent me a bunch of stuff at one point, and everything I enjoyed, quite a bit. But could you tell us? So let's start it like this. What are some things you've been making lately, and then kind of go into that, and we'll talk. And I have some additional questions for you.
Yeah. So the easiest thing I think to tell is cakes. Cakes are probably one of the easiest things you can make for yourself, and they seem really difficult, but it's pretty easy to make them macro friendly. You can use pre-made mixes that like Duncan Hines has store mixes, but if you really want to get into from a further health standpoint, which I know you guys definitely do, there's tons of other flours you can use. They have chickpea flours and cassava, a lot of they have a lot of gluten-free stuff now. And you can basically, for every cup of flour that a recipe essentially calls for, you can replace it with a scoop of protein. It's about a 1-in-1 ratio, but using something like that, you can create cakes pretty easily. And that's something that I'm real into, because you can make 4 at a time, and then you can use them throughout the week. The trick is, how do you keep them moist, right? Because you want it to actually be a baked good and not just a dry lump of coal. So using Greek yogurt in there is definitely that's something that I would tell a lot of people that they don't think to do, which is Greek yogurt is one of probably the most versatile. If I had to tell somebody one food to use to be able to make healthy baked goods, or even recipes, because you can use it for tuna salads and chicken salads and dips. And it'll up the protein, which most of the time with, I don't know about your clients, but specifically with mine, it's how do I get all that extra protein in? Well, this is one of those things you could definitely use to bake with or
right with. And that would also probably take out a lot of the dryness you get from overusing protein powders and things, I would assume, in the products.
Most definitely.
Do you use protein powders at all in any of the products? Because I know that's so hit or miss, because they'll kind of puff up, especially if you use an egg or something in there with it. But it's at a point it really ruins the texture and how moist the product is.
So you have to cook them at a lower temperature.
Okay.
You can use eggs. So you should use eggs, to be honest with you, because you need a better binding agent. Because if you're not using something to bind it together, that's why partially you get that dry, ugh. taste. And then the rubbery part comes from, with protein, it can't get too hot. So if you cook them at a lower temperature, it'll allow them to like cook for a little longer. That will work. And then another thing is I don't know if a lot of people know this, if they're super familiar with baking, but they need to sit and cool because they continue to bake, no matter if it's cookies or cakes or anything, after they come out of the oven. They're still going to be cooking. So
Right.
like pulling them beforehand so that you actually can get the consistency that you're wanting out of, your cookie or your cake or whatever.
Right. So don't over bake and then let it sit because it's going to just bake even more outside the oven type of thing.
Correct.
Gotcha. So the Greek yogurt, because I do see this in a lot of the recipes a lot. So the Greek yogurt fits in there. What about, because the common things like, well, how do I substitute oil? Right. It's like, well, how do I substitute oil in a lot of the recipes, whether it be like pancakes or cakes or breads or just whatever? Because I mean, almost all those have oil. So
oh, sorry.
go for it. No, go for it.
I would say I would use eggs or butters, like nut butters. You can use some of those. I definitely will say I've used, what is it? There's like a reduced fat, like Country Crock. I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't tried something like that. It actually works really well with some of the recipes. I don't know how well it goes for like as far as functional medicine, but it definitely will work to create with. Now, if you want something that's a little better, I would definitely use like eggs or some kind of nut butter or a better oil and just lower the amount so that it'll spread a little more evenly. Because it's not that you don't necessarily want to use those things. You just don't want to use, like, if it calls for canola oil, can we switch the oil and then can we lessen that oil? Because you're still going to get the flavor that you want out of this food. You're just going to change it just enough so that it actually is a little bit better for you. So you're not like blowing macros on,
Right.
a couple.
Yeah, that was my question too. Do the oils, because obviously like the oils have different smoke points and things like that, and how much you can heat them, and then where they oxidize and that. So does it produce any different? I mean, they use canola oil because it's cheap. It's super duper cheap. That's what most of the stuff calls for. But we obviously don't want to use that. So could you have you had right? Yeah. Have you had any success subbing in, better oils? Like off the top of my head, I would think something like macadamia nut oil would be fantastic because
I love coconut oil, honestly.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably my favorite.
Yeah.
It is probably my most favorite to use and to substitute with. That's the one I use the most. Sometimes I'll use some olive oil, but most of the time it's just coconut oil.
Gotcha.
Which also why everything cooks at a little bit of a lower temperature.
Right. Well, and then too, coconut oils having like that higher saturated fat content, it gets like really, I don't even know. It's not as like pure liquidy. It's almost kind of buttery.
Yes, and that's what you kind of want more of in a baked good. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Rather than just like gooey, just straight liquid, for sure. Sweet. So, one sec. So we're talking about cakes and baking, and those are, so most of your cakes and stuff, and that stuff's actually not that difficult. I've done some of those things myself, and I have very little. My baking knowledge is pretty much nothing. So if I can, if I can make some of those things, it's not too terribly difficult. Now, what about? There's probably not much difference between something like a cake versus like a bread or something like that. Is there really any difference in those?
There's really not. Like, I think people make it a lot harder than it has to be. There's really not a huge difference. It's how you're cooking it, what you're cooking it with. Like the banana bread that we had, I mean, it was literally like bananas, Greek yogurt. You can use any kind of flour you want to use, and then eggs, and then your sweeteners, choice of sweeteners, and that's really it. Like, the thing about it is I think that since people don't have baking knowledge, they're not putting in things like you want to be using like a baking powder.
Sure.
Like you need something to help it rise a little bit. Like, and you're gonna need baking soda if you're using some of these like fresh fruits. And those are just things that like I think people don't know to like actually get the like flavor, texture, consistency the way that you're looking for in a baked good. And that's really like the scary thing about it. And you can use xanthan gum. A lot of recipes use xanthan gum.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on how that hits you body wise. Some people respond to it, some people don't. I can take it or leave it sometimes.
Yeah, but I would imagine with xanthan gum or something like guar gum or something like that, it would be such a small amount. It shouldn't, I mean, make
You're
a
not,
huge
you're not
difference.
using that much. Yeah, you're definitely
Yeah,
not. A teaspoon of that or a teaspoon of that or isn't really gonna, or even a couple teaspoons isn't gonna impact an entire batch very much. You
right.
know,
It can screw you up though, like
it
your gut if you use too much for sure. Um,
can't. Protein fluff. Let's put it all
yeah,
in there.
well, right. That was actually one of my questions too, is like where do we, if things to watch out for in terms of binders and fillers and stuff like that, that might while it might like make it more palatable or the texture better, it might actually just screw up your digestion. The first one that came to mind was just trying to like volumize stuff too much.
Yeah. Um, I definitely think I've made the mistake in years past of using like too much xanthan. Like I said, like I made the protein fluff comment, xanthan gum will thicken anything up. And I mean, you can use it that with like soups and stuff and like different things like that to make them thicker if you wanted to make like a sauce out of like if you were like cooking shrimp, right, and you wanted to make like a sauce that the shrimp kind of sits in to put over like maybe cauliflower, you could use it there. But if you're using and when I say that, you should probably sprinkle it, but I know I've seen tons of people put a lot in there and then digestion just goes to shit. I
Right.
would I don't know that there's necessarily a point. I think that's probably pretty person dependent on what your body can handle and not handle. I don't really know that one, to be honest with you. I know I can't take too much.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I know. I kind of cringe. It's like, yeah, my protein fluff weighs, it's like the size of a whole mixing bowl and it only has 200 calories. I'm like, well, yeah, there's a lot of there's a reason there's a reason it's only 200 calories. That the amount of filler and just water you take, that's exactly what you don't want. Tons of xanthan gum and tons of water.
Right. I definitely not.
Yeah.
I could definitely say I was that person for a little while. It's taken a little while. It's taken me some time to get a little less volume eating.
Yeah, and it's it kind of screws with your brain and your appetite too, because the amount of volume doesn't match the satiety in terms of calories. So it's like you always are kind of like chasing that fullness all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're always just wanting to, you absolutely feel like you have to be just completely full after every meal, and then you kind of get in trouble with that.
So true. So true.
Oh yeah, we've all done. I've done it. Oh shit, I've been there. Just anyone that's been on low calories and trying to figure out how the hell to make it a little more tolerable, it's
Oh yeah.
it can happen. uh, so what
I get
about?
bad with the skinny syrups is what I get really bad with, to be honest. Those are my like vices at this point in time.
Yep, yeah, just condiments, sweeteners, things like
Yeah.
that. Do you ever use? That's a question too that I had. So what about sweetening the product? So some of the stuff like you can, banana bread, for example. I mean, the banana itself helps in that, and then without like adding anything else, and I'm sure you might have to add some more, but do you have a preference on how you would sweeten something? Do you have, because obviously like stevia and things like that, they can be too bitter in high amounts. And so how do you kind of do that?
So originally, when I first started, flavor wise, the best flavor you're probably going to get is from sucralose, but sucralose doesn't sit well. So once that was kind of figured out a little more, we decided to go more of a stevia route. You just have to be, like you said, you have to be careful with how much you're going to use because you can't have that bitter aftertaste. But if you're using like with the banana bread, using the baking soda in there, as well as using like a brown sugar stevia substitute. You can do that. Monk fruit is another one that'll work really well. You kind of gotta like half and half them though. So if you split them, you do a little better.
Gotcha. That takes off some of the, well, it's just like a lot of the popular stevia sweeteners will use the erythritol sugar alcohol in there because it kind of like smooths it out a little bit, makes it,
Yeah.
AKA Truvia that we have. I don't know. I'm sure Joe probably has something in the UK that's somewhat comparable, but
Yeah, you don't.
do you guys have it?
You see just stevia, but it's so uncommon. It's very uncommon for people to buy.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we have. You guys probably have like Splenda or something like that, though, right? Sucralose.
Yeah, sucralose sweeteners is what everybody would use here, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sucralose doesn't bug me too much, to be honest. To be completely honest, probably the one I tolerate the best and notice most people tolerate the best is literally aspartame.
Oh God, it's so terrible.
Well, it tastes bad by itself because it's metally, has a metally taste to it. But
It tastes like shit.
but I'm just talking like in terms of like a diet soda because they're all sweetened with aspartame. Pretty much all. So,
yeah. Well, it depends on if you do diet or if you do zeros, because zeros are all sucralose.
Right. Yeah, I do diet.
See, I do zeros. The sucralose, I can do sucralose in like small amounts. Like if I can do like one diet, like 0 a day, and it doesn't really impact me.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not like sitting pounding them. I'm just saying like I generally prefer the diet over the zero, to be completely honest.
Hey, everybody's got a preference.
Maybe it's just I'm just old. I'm gonna be the old guy that puts sweet and low in his coffee that nobody else uses.
That's perfect. Don't use my Splenda.
Yeah. Do you guys, Joe? Do you guys have? See, sweet and low would be what? Saccharin? Is that the sweetener? That the saccharin sweetener? I think that's what's in it. It's absolutely disgusting.
I don't know.
Tastes like,
because I don't really use any. My wife would know. I've got no idea. Oh, she buys the only stuff she uses. These little like they look like pills, but you just like mix them like like cream of rice.
They dissolve. Yeah, they dissolve.
Yeah, mix.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
I tell you, I've eaten so many calories for so long now that I don't use anything like that at all.
Yeah.
Because I just have no desire to do it. But yeah, for baking, I was just curious for recipes and baking and stuff because obviously you can have a great consistently, but probably totally butcher the whole thing if you sweeten it wrong.
Oh yeah, you can destroy something. What you were saying your calories are so high that you don't have to. I was telling somebody that the other day because I really love using honey. Because I think one thing that isn't really like we want it to be low calorie, right? Because a lot of people are lower calorie, but you're killing the food if you don't at least give it some of the realness, like real sugars in there. If you want it to be an actual like tasty, like closer to a reality type of food, you know what I mean? I would put some real sugar into something like that and like cut that sugar in half with like real sugar and stevia or something like that.
Yeah.
And most people, if you could probably manage that because you're still cutting your carbs in half, and that's probably like all we really need to do. If we can cut that fat down just a little bit, if we can cut those carbs down just a little bit, we have a better alternative. And I think that's kind of the goal with that. So, I mean, we all get to a place where we're like, oh, put all the artificials, but if you could split them in half, I think you do a little better. And the food
I think it's that goes back to like the volume thing though too, is that and the satiety thing is like, obviously leaving a food in its most natural form, I think is probably going to give you the most satiety and the most like enjoyment, I guess you should say, out of eating it, right? Because that slippery slope the slippery slope of sweeteners, right? Because eventually there's a very fine line that you tread, and it's like, I'm just craving this stuff and it's just making me want to eat it more and more. And then your food, the actual quality of your food just continues to go down because you're just basically trying to make everything as palatable as possible without much nutritional value.
Right.
So yeah, like I would rather somebody, it's like an example would be like trying to eat 100 grams of carbs versus of vegetables a day instead of actually just having like some rice or potato in there. Right? You're just like, you're causing, yeah, okay, you get to fill your stomach up more, but at what cost?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I will say that there are some cool ways to create the consistencies that you want using you mentioned vegetables and stuff like black beans. You can make brownies with black beans and you really can get that like fudgy consistency. And then you're still getting a little more of the nutrients that you're wanting. Along with that, you can have a little bit of that deeper health, but also a little bit of them sweets.
what about applesauce? Because I've seen people use that as an alternative in some recipes. Do you use that at all?
Yes, it's also a good binding agent, and it'll sweeten something without having to use extra sweeteners. Anything you can do to sweeten something without having to use extra sweeteners, which a lot of times that ends up being like a fruit of some sort. But yeah, they will definitely work for that. Applesauce is a good one. Like I said, like the black beans in the brownies is a really good one for a consistency basis. You can use zucchini, even. You can make brownies or breads using zucchini, and it'll give it a little more of that like thickness, I guess, that you would want out of something like that. You could kind of make like cakes out of it, or even like muffins. You just have to, because zucchini has such a like water density. If you can wring it out once you have it, then when you blend it up, you can create a little better bread with it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and zucchini is so low calorie too. So that is
like oats and we call it a courgette. Like oats and courgette. That's a zucchini in it. That's the same vegetable.
Yeah, you don't call it zucchini.
I don't know the same thing. Yeah. So what people like bowls of like courgette and oats? I've seen that.
I've totally done that. I have totally done that. How?
Yeah.
It's like, so what I do honestly is so I'll just blend one up in a Ninja and then pour it into my oats.
They're already cooked.
Like it, yeah, like the oats are cooked, and then I just blend a zucchini up and pour it into my oats. And I don't have to use any sweeteners because I use the protein powder for the sweetener. And it tastes delicious. It gives me a little more volume. I'm pretty deep in prep, so that I'm like, yeah, I want that in there.
That's mad. I've never even thought to do that, but I'm going to try it.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, my oats are covered in cinnamon anyways, and I'm like, I don't really taste it. It gives it a little bit more thickness. Like it definitely creates a little more happiness in my life.
Yeah, that volume's important. Thing is that sometimes this is why I was looking forward to getting you on, because I've tried to do these things before and I'm like, my God, this just tastes like a shitter version of what I was trying to make. And now I'm just like eating food I don't like. You know what I mean? Like I've tried to do like loads of protein cakes. It's been like eating salad. Greek yogurt, that's what I need to do.
Greek yogurt is I swear to God, the most versatile thing you can use. I mean, you can literally use it for anything. You can use it to make mac and cheese. You can use it to make pizzas. You can use it. I mean, it will cook into anything, and it bakes really well. Like you can blend it up. It's super easy.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Austin's just disappeared, so for some reason. But whilst we're talking about this, how on earth do you make a pizza out of Greek yogurt?
So there's a flour, it's called like Arrowhead Mills. I think it's like a chickpea flour, and it's like a higher protein flour, right? You can use that in Greek yogurt, and then whatever like other thing you want to put in there, like egg or whatever, and make it like a bread. And then once it bakes, you just, because it'll be a little bit, you can put cheese in there, like if you use like a fat-free cheese. If you want to keep the fat lower, if you have a lot of fat content, I'm always trying to figure out what's the lowest I can make of something. But putting that in there, baking that, and then you have your, you toss some tomato sauce on it and like some whatever your toppings are, and there you go. It's super easy, and then it's super low cal.
Amazing. I want to try it.
I got all the diet hacks.
You think
diet hack episode.
Do you ever think sometimes like, damn, I made this taste too good?
Yes. So listen, I made some crepes last night and I was like, oh man, I hope Jason doesn't see that reel. No. I was like, these taste really, really awesome. They have these, it's called like crepinis. They're like egg thins. And they only have like 1 gram of protein in them, and they're just like cauliflower and egg whites, basically. I don't know who creates crepini is who creates them, but like how exactly they're pressed. But I mean, the ingredient list on it is solid. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I'm not concerned about this. And then I blended up some protein powder and like a skinny syrup, and then poured it on top. And I was like, this is delightful. This should be like sinful at like 2 weeks out.
It's like, I don't know if I should eat this because it's gonna taste too good, and that's one of those where you're hesitant to eat it before bed. You almost want to like eat it during the day when you have other shit to do, and then
no. No. I have to eat it before bed so that I can take myself upstairs and go to bed. Otherwise, that'll create a downhill slope for me for the rest. Like, that's the last thing I can eat.
That's rough. That's hard. I know I have boundaries I have to set for volume and certain things in food. When my calories get low, I'm like, just don't do this. Not that I'm worried about like I'm gonna binge or anything. It's just like I don't really want to make myself feel like that. You know?
I totally get that. I mean, and that's mine. Like, mine is like, I want to have a sweet, but if I have a sweet earlier in the day, it does not benefit me, because then I'm like a little more on edge for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Where if I end my night with it, I'm like, okay, I can go to bed happy.
Yeah. It's the diet, definitely the behavior and just the neurotransmitter balance and satiety signals and everything. It's so interesting when you get that lean and low calorie, your body's just doing everything it can to basically get you out of that state. It's like, hey, that was good. Eat more. Right. You should. Like, hey, you should eat more of that. What about go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to ask, just for the listeners, Ashley, what is one very simple diet hack that you do daily, potentially, that people could include right off the bat to make their diet in life a little bit more enjoyable?
Ooh, daily protein in my oatmeal. Honestly, it's the easiest thing ever. Like, the literal easiest thing ever. Like, and you'd just be mind blown by how many people don't do that. I mean, I know for you guys, I think your listener base is probably a little more active in fitness and already does something similar, but that would be for like my clients. Generally, that's like the one that I use daily, and that I think so many people are like, what? Just throw some protein in there. Like, it'll make it a cakewalk. I can definitely say my other one would be like, have you seen those Joseph pita breads? Like, they're like pita wraps.
I have. I'm sure Joe probably does not have them, but
Joseph's pita bread. I'm Googling it.
Google it. They're so good. Okay, so they're one that definitely stays in my diet for the most part. Maybe not right now, but for the most part, they're low carb. They're a little higher protein, and they're big. And you can, yeah, they're just, you can do anything with them. Like I've made churros out of them. You can make nachos out of them. You can make a pizza out of it. You can make like a wrap out of it, quesadillas. Like you can make crepes out of it if you wanted to. Using stuff like that can be like super versatile. I'm like, okay, cool. So I don't have to feel like I'm like, dieting my face off all the time using something like that.
Yeah,
go ahead, Joe.
These low carb pittas for English people listening. On Ocado, you can get these low carb pittas. They're called like Carb Zone. And also there's a company called Be Free that do pita breads that are pretty low calorie, that Jazz eats, and they're like made of sweet potato. Sweet potato bread. Yeah, they're nice. They're nice. So
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, Be Free. You guys seem to get a lot more interest in food than we do.
I'd like to present you with a new challenge, Ashley. So if you could make, let's see if you can make the absolute lowest volume, highest calorie food possible, and I will pay to have it shipped to me to make it. What's up, Joe?
That's just the IV glucose.
Yeah, I know. I'm working. I need to work on my nurse friends and see if I can get the IV going.
Listen, I'll create something for you. I'll send it your way.
You have to make it. I would say don't make it overly stimulating, so not like sickeningly sweet. So as little flavor as possible.
Tasteless.
I cannot relate to your struggle, but I will make you something.
I'm going to try it. See what you can, even if it's just like a brick. You know what I mean, like a like a bar or a brick or something. Bring me a sample to the PEC, and I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna see you in a couple of weeks. Yes, I forgot.
Yeah, so bring me a sample and be like, Ashley's ultra 2,500 calorie bar. Brick, yeah, a brick.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'll definitely. I'll Ashley's mass gainer meals.
I've resorted today. I ran out of. I use oil. I use a lot of oil to fill in fats because oil just digests easier than animal fat, like beef and things. So right. I ran out of my avocado oil and my macadamia nut oil. So all I had was my grass-fed butter. Instead of eating off the stick, I melted it in the microwave and then just drank it out of the cup today. It's not good. I don't recommend. I do not recommend.
I wouldn't either. Ew.
The warm butter going down your throat when you're like already partially nauseous is awful.
You should put that in coffee. Put it in some decaf. It would taste
better. I could do that. But
I'll help you out if you want me to make this taste good for you. Put that in some decaf, and it would actually be tasty.
Right. But I was like, oh god, we're having Ashley on today. I got to see what kind of like super high calorie concoction she can make me.
I'll do something for you.
That's funny. I'm totally game for it. So what about non-baked goods? So you talked about obviously protein oatmeal, mixing like Greek yogurt and using those things, but are there any non-baked good items outside of that you like? I guess you mentioned crepes. That's not baked. That's technically made in a pan, but what other kind of stuff do you like?
Tons. So I love food in general. Fat girl status is real. Like the mindset of that, I love food. So like I said, mac and cheese is one that I actually really like to try and make outside of like making it macro friendly. You can use like those bonsai. Have you seen the bonsai pasta?
I don't think so. What is it made of?
It's chickpea.
Okay.
It's chickpea, and you can use Greek yogurt, and then like the fat. Like I said, everything is generally lower for me just because my calories never get like astronomically high as yours. So you could use real cheese, but like cheese and then like some grated Parmesan and stuff, and you make your own like healthier version of a mac and cheese. I use spaghetti squash to do spaghetti quite often, and I mean that's delightful. What else? Using like, so everybody likes Chinese food, right? Or like Thai food or some type of Asian inspired meals, but they use like peanut oil, which I'm kind of not into. So what you could do is use like a soy and then mix it with a PB powder. And then you'll kind of be able to have
Yep.
that flavor without having to do like a peanut oil.
So you do soy, so like a soy sauce mixed with like PB2 type powder?
Yep.
Joe, do you guys have like the powdered peanut butter stuff?
Dude, we do. We have PB2. I've never used
Well,
it.
there you go.
Yeah, so you can use that to you can use it with the soy sauce and mix it together, and you can basically like saute your veggies in it. You can spice it if you want to, but it's also a way to up some protein. You know what I mean? That's always a hack for me because of the women that I work with. It's like, what can I do to get a little more into their diet? So something like that not only gets a little more into their diet, it allows for that meal to happen.
Is that good
Yeah,
on
well, I don't know. Go ahead, Joe.
Is that good on cream of rice? You just like put it in there or put it on top?
Yeah, you could. You totally could put it in cream of rice.
I know. I don't know who doesn't like Asian food. I mean, everybody likes Asian food, I think.
Yeah, I haven't met too many people that are like, oh, I'm not into that. I'm like, all right, well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, well.
Jazz does a lot of Asian food because she lived in Vietnam for a while. So that's a good idea. I'm going to try that when she's on prep later this year.
There you go. And like Mexican inspired meals or Spanish flavored meals. I mean, cauliflower is definitely an answer there because I feel like it's one of those like super versatile things that you can flavor any way you want. Like you can make like hash browns out of cauliflower. You can make it like an actual rice, and then whatever seasoning you want to use can make it either Asian or like I said, like a Spanish inspired Mexican meal, something like that.
Speaking of Asian, this could be something cool. I'm sure you could probably make. Well, I'm not going to say that because Jerica made it. She'll slap me if I tell her it wasn't good. It was good. It was really good. So she made crab rangoon in the air fryer.
Yes, I love an air fryer. That's where I made my churros. Yeah. I made churros in the air fryer. They're so good.
She just did like the little wonton wrappers, and then it was just made. You can make the filling was cream cheese, which you could use low fat or fat free cream cheese for sure if somebody wanted to. And then I don't remember what else exactly was in there, but oh my God, they were delicious.
I love
They're
that.
So good. Oh yeah, they're so good. Yeah, she's trying to fatten me up over here.
Oh my God.
You
said you wanted to get big, man.
I know. She belittles me all the time. She won't let me leave until my plate's clean.
That's support.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's how she supports me. She'll make me sit there and cry. I'm like a little kid who won't finish his plate. I'll sit there all night.
You should put a picture of Nasser Al-Attiyah on the fridge.
Yeah, I have him. There's a picture of him eating and like sweating profusely. He's soaked through all his layers of clothes.
Yeah, and a picture of him in the toilet as well.
I have my 6XL shirt hung up on the wall as a reminder that I don't fit in it yet. I just stare at it every day.
One day.
Yeah. She told me, I told you, Joe, she created the ultimate appetite stimulator. She just said, take 3 times the insulin that you need and you'll have to eat or you'll pass out.
The whole land just, you just ride that
wave. She said, just take as the whole thing and then you'll either eat or die. It's like, you'll literally have no choice but to get big.
Right, eat or die. There you go. Answered the question right there.
I mean, it doesn't get any more hardcore than that.
Oh my god, I love her.
Yeah,
Is she coming?
is she coming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
she'll be there. So she actually, little sidetrack, but she actually will be working for me now.
Really?
We just brought her on. So
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
exciting. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yep, she'll definitely be there. That'll make it easier for like the traveling and stuff, not having to get days off work and all that stuff.
Right.
So
That'd be phenomenal.
yeah, but yep, we will definitely be there. Then I expect some kind of awesome high calorie brick, hopefully.
All right, I'll come with the food.
I've got a question, Ashley.
Yeah, hit me.
How do I make egg whites not taste like shit?
Oh my god. So honestly, you're gonna die. You can make a waffle with egg whites and protein powder. Do you have a waffle maker?
No.
That's how you make them taste not like shit. If you want them to be sweet. If you would like them to be savory, I can also tell you how to do it that way too.
Do it. I'll do that.
That's more of a preference thing, but whatever protein powder you have, you can basically put those in with egg whites and a little bit of baking powder and put it in a waffle maker. And you will essentially, or a pancake maker, whatever you want, and they will basically crisp up for you. And then you can put, if you want a syrup on there, if you want a hot sauce on there, if you make them savory, you can put like some meat on there. If you wanted it to be like some kind of like wrap.
Savory waffles. I got you. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Listen, food's versatile. You can do anything with it as long as the flavor's good.
Yeah, see, that's what I need to look at protein powder meals to include egg whites. Because I'll do dieting, I'll have like protein powder in cream of rice with like dark chocolate on it. And that's such low volume of food. So,
right.
Yeah, I need to be thinking like you are. Egg white.
Listen, I can help you there.
my
Joe, are your calories lower right now?
Hello, for me, they're at 3,300 and I'm dropping weight. So crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's damn. I think everyone would be happy. I'm sure Ashley would be happy to have 3,300 calories, and as would I right now.
Right. I didn't want to say it, but I was like, I don't know that my calories have ever gotten that high.
Just for different reasons, of course, but
right.
Yeah.
Also, like, I'd love to eat less, and I'm over here like, I'd love to eat more.
Oh, less. I wish the ideal thing would, I have these few clients that, and this isn't normal, like most people are not like this, obviously, but they operate within such a small window, right? Like they'll gain weight at like 3,500 calories, and they'll lose weight at like 3,000 calories. Like, it's all within a window. Like, that is, it's the ideal world where every time you take away calories, you lose weight like you're supposed to, but most of us don't have that luxury. We operate in a lot bigger window.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, or just a lower one, but cool. Yeah, that was all really helpful, to be completely honest. I thought one thing kind of cool to close us out would be give us maybe one of your favorite recipes and run us through start to finish. Like, this is what you need, this is how you do it, and then there you
go. Ooh, okay.
Anyone you want, whatever's maybe hot right now for you, that you like.
One of my favorites right now, buffalo chicken dip. It's
okay.
So good.
Well, tell us.
So it's Greek yogurt, Kraft, the fat-free cheddar, Frank's Red Hot. You use the buffalo sauce, and then I use those Popcorners seasonings. It's like a nacho cheddar seasoning, and then you can use whatever kind of chicken you want, but make sure it's shredded, and then you just mix that all up, and boom, that's buffalo chicken dip. And obviously, depending on what your macros are, you can put it on like a salad or eat it with crackers or have it with like some of those popcorners chips. It's super easy to make, like super easy to make, high protein. It's delicious. It's not like, it doesn't feel like you're just eating chicken and greens. You know what I mean? I need that in my life. So that's a hitter for right now.
Yeah, that's sweet. I think that's I've noticed with the calories up, the savory stuff is a lot better. Like, yeah. I can eat way more of the savory stuff with, like, you know, with fats or savory flavors and things like that versus just sweets. I mean, because sweets, I could make high calorie stuff, but I just can't eat very much of it.
Right. Putting that savory in there makes it a little bit better, though. I mean, it definitely is you're like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. Everything's cooked. I think every single thing I eat right now is cooked in butter. Just like fucking butter everything.
I love it.
Oh, well, it'll
like maybe one day.
Probably not, though.
Let's
be honest.
Let's be honest.
Probably not, though. I won't even be, you know, it's like one day when I'm not trying to gain muscle anymore, I'll just be really happy just eating like a maintenance calories that just is tolerable and not have to be, you know, not have to be like either starving or like ungodly full.
I told somebody that the other day. I was like, you know, like, don't get me wrong, I love dieting for a show, but I'm going to be excited to go back to a maintenance level just so that I can like eat some, like, create some food that isn't like volume eats or like super low calorie. That's just kind of like, oh, like this is a normal, like satiating, like balanced meal.
Right. Yeah. This is what's supposed to happen. You know, when you eat a reasonable amount of food and you get a full like you're supposed to, and it's all normal. You know.
Right.
Just right. Yep. Joe, any more questions or diet hack questions?
No, I'm cool. I think I'm off to go and try and make a pizza out of yogurt.
Right, Joe's gonna be my DMs. He's gonna be our DMs like, Ashley, tell me some more hacks here. Like, my calories are getting lower. What do I need to do?
Yeah, I'm sure if I'm hungry, I'm gonna be in there. Yeah.
Joe's gonna have a whole ebook. It's like yogurt tacos, yogurt pizza, yogurt burritos, yogurt cookies.
Cooking.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'll collaborate with you on that, Joe. Don't worry.
I'm sure people will buy it. Cooking with yogurt in 2021.
Yeah, cooking with yogurt. That's good. That's good to do. Sweet. Well, I think that's all good on my end. I do look forward to seeing you in it's like what, 3 weeks.
3.
Right?
Oh, it's 3.
Holy shit. Okay. All right.
Yes. Thanks so much for having me on today, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Anybody
that wants some more of those diet hacks or anything, I try to post some content like that regularly on Instagram. It's at Smashly_724 if you want to look for some of that stuff.
Perfect. Cool. That's it on my end. Joe,
awesome.
Take it out.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you for listening. As always, please do check out the sponsor links below. Any questions, hit any of us up. Also, as always, please do take the screenshot, put this on your Instagram story. We'd love to see it, tag us, stuff like that. Cheers, guys. See you next week.